percentage of deals in the United States anyway that are being done on creative financing and what we call terms is skyrocketing. In the early 90s, and I forget where I read this, the number was like 2 or 3% where deals would be done outside of banks. That number is growing. I would imagine it's approaching 20%, and it's only increasing because of what we said earlier with the banks and all the challenges. And why would a buyer not want to go to someone like you or I and, I don't have to go to bank. I don't have to go through the microscope. I don't have to pay the thousands and tens of thousands in points. I can avoid all that and just go through you. Why wouldn't they do that? So it's just making everybody aware. And people say, it's new. It's not new.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. I am your host, Dwan Twyford, and I am America's most sought after real estate investor. So by a show of hands, how many of you work all week long and you feel like at the end of the week, you just don't make enough money? You get that paycheck and you're like, I can do better than that. Well, you are at the right place. Because today we have another exciting episode of Inside the Minds of Today's Millionaires. And I am so honored. I'm interviewing Chris Prefontaine. Chris, how are you today?
I am awesome. Thank you. I love that opening. So it gets the brain going a little bit for the listeners. That's awesome.
Nice. Now, I love this series, and it's a newer series to the Most Wonderful Real Estate Podcast. But I really like to interview all the different people, that's successful, people like yourself, people that are even students, people kind of coming up, just kind of give people a vibe and a hope and know that, they're not alone in their struggle and their reality to become successful. So very excited to have you on the call today. Chris is the author of Real Estate on Your Terms and the New Rules of Real Estate, which is about your kids.
Actually, they co-authored it with me. So their footprint is all over it with me. Yep. Nice.
Now, as all my faithful, wonderful listeners know, we like to take a minute and check in, and we have drinks. So Chris and I have drinks. I'm having tea. What are you drinking, Chris?
It actually is a tea with some immune system, but it's cold today because it's hot out.
Mine is a live enzyme tea. Not tea.
So we both put something in it.
Yeah, we did. So cheers to you.
Yes. There you go.
Cheers to everybody at home. So everybody, how are you? I always just like to take a second and check in. You doing good? Are you feeling good? Are you doing all your assignments? How's your real estate investing going? And Chris, what about you? How are you today? How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I love your theme. You told me right before we started of the $1 million millionaires, because it's so, I don't want to say easy and water it down, but the 0 to $1 million, I always say, is kind of like a lot of muscle. Like, again, not trying to water it down, but a lot of people can get there with more muscle, like more calls, more follow-up, more this, more that. It's after that tends to be the next challenge.
Yeah, that really is a very, very good point. So I am one of these people. I'm really super curious about people. I ask all kinds of crazy questions. I'm curious about people and what makes people tick and what do they like and what do they don't like. And how did you become, so I'm going to have you give us a brief summary before I start dealing with a bunch of questions. How did you go from 0 to Chris Prefontaine, the smart real estate coach? Like, not the whole entire story, but how did you become this person?
I was going to say, I talk fast, but that would take a while to do that whole thing after
like
30 years in the business.
Sort of a little bit. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about your background, but there's always a path.
Yep. So, the short answer is going to be experience. And the reason I say that is success is just a real bad teacher. So it's all the bumps and the weathering the storms and the economic changes. And that's what we're all going through now, but it's not my first. And so the journey was, I wish it was straight like that. It wasn't. 08 crushed me. And then that made us re-engineer the business to get where we are today. You couldn't have convinced me back then that was good, but I will tell you that was good, because now we just got a whole different ballgame going on now, buying the way we do and selling the way we do. So short answer is experience, so you can be adaptable.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I really love to podcast. I always share, not every week, but I've made a lot of bonehead mistakes, as I am sure that you have as well. And I always tell people, like, listen, let me tell you about some of the dumb things I've done, and don't repeat that history. It didn't work then. It still won't work today.
Right.
There's no reason. So looking back at you, what were you like? Like, what was a 13-year-old Chris like?
13, you're gonna rack my brain here.
Yeah, I know.
Go back too many years. I was always working. So even when I was in school, I'm talking as early as 10 years old, we were in a family company. It was not real estate, actually, but I would be working outside of school and hockey. Those are the three things. So when I say it wasn't real estate, important bridge here to get to where I was. So my dad owned a welding supply business in industrial gases, but he would build his own buildings and then have the company lease them back, which as a 13-year-old, I was like, I don't get that. They're both you. How do you do that? So I learned that whole concept of the company and you and the investing and the building. So I was around it. That's what kind of got me interested in real estate.
Well, see, that's really interesting, because you took like an aspect of what your family was doing, and sort of like when we do subject twos and stuff, it's like, oh, you're around it, yeah, you're getting it back, and you did hockey. Do you still play hockey? Do you still like it for a sport?
No, I love it, but if I play, it's the injuries last longer now at this age.
Oh my Lord, let me tell you something. I recently went roller skating with my daughter, who is the traveling skater now. I've not been on skates in like 30 years. I thought for sure I was going to die. It's like, I didn't fall, but Lord have mercy, it is not like riding a bike.
Well, if you did, or when you do, as you know, that the injuries, instead of taking a week, take 6 months.
Oh Lord, I had too much going on. I can't be taking downtime like that. So advanced to when you're like 20, 21, where was your mindset then? Were you sort of like a college guy? Were you already working on business? Were you partying? Like, where were you going in your early 20s?
Yeah, we got married at 20. So, and we met in 7th grade. So from 20 on, I was working again, and starting real estate around 20. Let's see, it was in 91. I started real estate. So I was 20 something. Wow.
Well, you know what? I started right around the same time, but I was in my 30s. So we just won't talk about that. So that's it. So you were young. So you were like straight out the gate. Like, I want to do this. I want to be involved in real estate. Because so many people I find, they find investing maybe in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s. And they've had this whole path of not doing what they've really enjoyed. I know, I'm sure you do too. You must meet so many people like, hey, I got a degree. It took me all these years. I'm working on my degree and I hate what I'm doing.
Yeah, it drives me nuts, only because we can both say it now in hindsight, but it just drives me crazy because you look at the path, like we do deals and our deals are worth, like, we call it 3 paydays, but the total paydays are worth, like, in our market, about 75 grand. I look at that and say, we have young kids in their 20s and 30s doing those deals with us in our program. Why on earth would you stay with a job? I don't care how many years you took to get there. Why would you do that? I just don't get it.
I know. I don't get it either. That's why I always tell people just like, and it's very fulfilling for me to have students and see them start like yours doing well, and then they're young and they're doing well and they're making money. You're like, oh man, I sort of had a hand in that. It makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. There's people say, why do you coach? Like, why don't you just go keep doing deals? There's 2 reasons. And even our coaches now, who we have coaching for us, they say the same thing. The 2 things are, one, what you just said, watching someone go from A to Z. A lot of our people are brand new and they want to get out of the corporate, and to see them do that, there's a piece of that you can't put a value on. The second piece is we get better, right? When we coach, you have to, because you have to stay ahead. You have to sharpen the sword. And so your business gets better. We had a new coach recently. Come on. We have like 5 or 6. And he said, wow, now I see what you guys are saying. Like, my business, I have to be sharp. My business is getting better. It's so cool.
I agree with that. I feel like the more, because we can all only do so many deals between, you have a podcast, you're writing books, you have shows, you're teaching and training, you're still doing deals. We really can only do so much. And I do believe that coaching helps us to stay stronger, because as we're listening to people talk about the things they're facing today, it's like, oh yeah, it kind of keeps you like right in. So what do you like? What's your favorite project that you're working on right now?
I love doing what we're doing with the coaching side of things, but the deals are always interesting because they're never the same. I mean, I'm talking to some of the things the same thing, so I'm not I'm not saying anything new here, but the deals are always creative, so it keeps me in the game. As soon as they're not, and as soon as they're boring, I wouldn't be doing it. But the biggest project we're doing now is to work with associates. We call them associates. They're just students that lock arms with us, and they do deals all around North America, mostly U.S. So we're really, really, in my opinion, especially with COVID, affecting like generations within families because teaching them how to get into a home and teaching them how to do the right thing. It's really cool. So that, again, is very intriguing. So it keeps me going.
So if someone was listening today, they're like, wow, that sounds really interesting to me. What would that look like to somebody hearing you for the very first time? Like, oh, I love Dwanderful. She got this great guy, Chris, on. He's talking about that. Like, what would that look like to a new person coming over to you, to meeting you? What would that look like for them?
So we only buy on since '08 because I mentioned '08 earlier.
Yes.
It caused me to say, okay, if I'm going to go back to real estate, that's how spent I was. What are the rules going to be? Like, what are we going to do or not do? And it was things like, and this is for the new people especially, it was things like don't sign on bank loans because you're pledging your personal assets. Do not do that unless it's your own house, and I could even justify not doing it there. Do not put cash in, and if you do, very little. Do not attract investors, and only buy things on what we call terms. Lease purchase, owner financing, sub 2. You mentioned sub 2. So you can control all this real estate and not have to go through what I went through in '08, which was have the market change on you and not be in the right strategy and have all these bank loans looking at you for, hey, I need some money here because you're on it personally. Well, we control 50 or 60, our students another 50 or 60, and not one single solitary loan are we on. So that's what it looks like for a new person coming in saying, I don't want to be attached to any of that. I want to minimize my risk. I'm not going to say no risk, but minimize my risk.
It's funny. Subject twos are one of my favorite things. I've done, I don't even know, hundreds. We've had hundreds of them. And I teach my students, like, listen, if you want to get out there straight out of the gate and do something that's not going to bankrupt you if you make a mistake or, wreck your life if you screw it up, subject twos are the thing. So I'm happy to hear that you're like a super huge subject to fan and creative financing and things like that. I think, to me, that's some of the most exciting part of real estate is structuring.
Well, especially
that profit center.
I couldn't agree more, especially during this crazy time, right? You have banks, luckily for you and I and other investors, that are kind of like pushing the buyers out. That's hurting sellers. Like, I know rates are low, but if you're borderline, you just got pushed out of the credit game, right? Yep. So when you can put on the buyer side people in homes and help them get to the mortgage ready point, and on the seller side go, hey, no, the game's not over. You can do this. So last spring with COVID, all the sellers were panicky and they all came running to us. Our volume like tripled because we had the answers. So it's really cool to be in the creative space. We call it in the term space, and be able to be the guide for both of them. And we're not there yet, in my opinion. There's going to be a lot more of this as we go forward, and the demand is up for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that people make predictions all the time, but I just don't think people realize like how much of a tumbleweed has actually started here.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be a lot worse. And subject twos really are something that everybody can do, because there are a lot of people right this very minute that are getting affected from the COVID, not working, not this and that, but they want to be real estate investors. They want to get involved in things. They probably can't get a hard money loan. They certainly can't get a bank loan, but why can't they do subject twos and learn some more creative things and still start building their wealth and, like you said, their generational wealth and things by using something just a little bit more creative? And so many people, I find that a lot of gurus and people like you are afraid to talk about the subject twos and the creative stuff, because someone always goes, what do I have to do on sale clause? Isn't that illegal? Can you do that? And you have to hear that all the time.
That's why I'm laughing, because it's not like you hear the word illegal. It's not like my attorney is a senior partner in his firm, and he said, Chris, it's a contractual thing. There's nothing legal or illegal about it. It's a contract that they have with the bank. So we've had zero, and I'm sure you've had zero issues with that ever. Just pay the bill. Nobody's come looking for the house.
Exactly. I've actually, I can say in all honesty, I have never had a single subject to, because I take them subject to and then I offer them out as owner financing to new people. I have never had one of the people that I owner finance it to, I've never had a single person default and have to go into foreclosure. where I had to foreclose them. I had a few that were like, hey, I've been doing this. I can't really make it. Can I just give it back to you? But I have never had to actually go through the entire foreclosure process and try and get a house back under my control again, which is amazing because I've done 365 of these personally.
I love it.
But I'm always really open with the communication with the original homeowner and with the new one, and everyone's, like you said, very contractual. And here's what we do, and events of A and B and C, and we're on the same team.
Yeah, and communicate, right? If you communicate, that's why they come back to you and say, hey, Dwan, can you help me? Because you didn't block it off, or you didn't have poor communication since day one. It's cool.
Because that's one of the biggest things I hear is people are, well, what if the person you sell it or rent it, what if they don't pay? What do you do? I'm like, I don't know. We talk and they give it back, and I say, here's the money to move with, and good luck, and I'll pray for you, and I'll see you next time around. Loop back if you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. We exit that way on our sub-twos. I love that you do that. And then on our lease purchase and our owner financing and sub-twos, if they don't have enough down yet, we'll do the rent-to-own trail and give them a mortgage-ready plan so they are cashing out, actually. It's setting them up to win.
So you're collecting, I call it the a triple profit center. You're getting some money up front because the person if you're doing an owner financing, you're collecting a down payment from them, and you're getting money every month. And then you're getting money at the end when they refinance and put their name in it. So you're getting paid 3 times.
Yeah, I've never had, so we just trademarked 3 paydays. We just got the trademark for it. I've never had anyone on my show or on their show say it. You said our 3 payday system, basically. So you've been nailing that for forever, probably.
I call it the triple profit center.
You should trademark that.
Okay, so you heard it, guys. I'm trademarking it now. Nobody steal this from me. I call it the top profit, the middle profit, and the end load profit.
We call it payday 1, 2, 3. So we're on the same page. And look, we said it earlier when I said 75 grand per deal average on our family team. But if you can, as an investor, any business model, this is cool. Do what I just said. Get paid today, then get paid monthly thereafter, and then get paid 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, 30 years, whatever it is, the term in. There's no better model than that for a business owner, let alone a real estate investor.
Okay, what's that trademark? What's it called again?
Ours is 3 paydays.
3 paydays. Okay, I'm writing that down. So guys, you're hearing it here. I don't know if you've announced it all over the world yet, but you're hearing 3 paydays right here at Dwanderful because we are on the cutting edge of everything.
Love it.
I love it. I did not realize that you and I do a lot of the same on that kind of thing. And we're always doing rehabbing, and, we wholesale, and we always, we a lot of coaching and things like you do as well. But it seems like with the things that have happened in the last, year and what's coming forward in the next several years, I feel like the subject to and the creative financing is sort of going to be the solid backbone of what investors should be doing.
I couldn't agree more for a few reasons. And I'm seeing it, like I'm sure you are with your students. We see a lot of big wholesalers, like as recent as this week, come on board. Why? Because they know what you and I know. They now know it. We've known it. And that is that the percentage of deals in the United States, anyway, that are being done on creative financing and what we call terms is skyrocketing. In the early 90s, and I forget where I read this, the number was like 2 or 3% where deals would be done outside of banks. That number is growing. I would imagine it's approaching 20%, and it's only increasing because of what we said earlier with the banks and all the challenges. And why would a buyer not want to go to someone like you or I and, I don't have to go to bank. I don't have to go through the microscope. I don't have to pay the thousands and tens of thousands in points. I can avoid all that and just go through you. Why wouldn't they do that? So it's just making everybody aware. And people say, it's new. It's not new. I read a book on vacation about a year ago that it was like the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, and it was late 1800s. This book, they were doing lease purchase. This is not new. We just put a system around it. In your case, what'd you call yours? The generation? The 3 paydays. What'd you call it?
Yeah. I call it we call it the triple profit center.
Triple profit. So you have the triple profit center, and we have 3 pay. Well, they did it before. They just didn't call it what you and I are calling it.
I know. It is funny. I did not know that went all the way back to the 1800s. So we're just sort of we're like OG subject to people.
Yeah.
That's it. We're right here. We're like OG, man. Yep. We were doing it back then.
Next generation.
That's right. Yeah, the 2008 market, that really was something. It really changed a lot. And I remember all that so many people that I knew that had so many rentals and so many, like you said, everybody signed on the dotted line. And I watched thousands of people just go completely bankrupt. And it just, and I was like, wow, there's just gotta be a better way. But I was always doing subject twos I guess in the beginning, it was something I went to a class or a workshop or a seminar and I heard someone talk about it. And I was like super broke back in those days. So I was like, oh, this sounds like something I can do, So I was doing them way back. Probably not as good because I did not understand the contract and the paperwork. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah, not like I do today. I look back at some of my deals. I did one of my subject twos on a handshake. I was like, hey, it was all right. And we hugged it out. And I was like, all right, we're good. I look back at that now. I'm like, if a student came to me and said, hey, I hugged and handshake a homeowner, I made a
Fall
deal.
off your chair.
I would be like, you get back over there right now and fix that. I would have a meltdown over someone doing something like that now. So in the I want to use the right term here for you. In the 3 payday system, obviously you guys provide the paperwork. And do you help the students and structure the deal and kind of partner along with them on those deals?
Yeah, so we have an online platform that they can go do their own thing. We encourage them to, or if they want to get more aggressive, we call it our associate program. So what we do is we do deals with them and we rev share, but they don't have us for life. They don't need us for life. So they do what we call cap out eventually. So let's just use the example of 10 deals. After 10 deals, you kind of get it. I mean, there's always going to be nuances, but you get it and you can survive and thrive. So that's how our program works. When I said we have them all over the country, that's what we're doing. Because there's no better way, I know you'll agree because you're in the same space. There's no better way to learn, not just real estate, than that interactive, I did this, no, critique it, adjust it, move on. There's no better way than that. I call it ACA, by the way. It's ACAA, which is action, critique, adjust, action. So they take action, then we critique it, they adjust, and they take action again. If they just keep doing that in a coaching environment, they can't mess up. They can't.
Actually, it's such a good idea. I'm going to steal your idea now.
You may.
I'm not going to steal your ideas. It's just so funny because I didn't realize like exactly how much of this side of it that we actually have so much in common. Because I'm the same way. That's why I like to coach people, because I wish someone would have coached me in the beginning, because I wouldn't have done some of the dumb things that I did. And the things that I did, it's not that I did dumb things. I didn't know not to.
Yeah.
Nobody was there to say, hey, listen, don't do this way. Don't do that. Don't not do a title search on that house. Don't not do that. I was just like going along, and then something would happen and I'd be like, oh, I should make a note. Don't do this again. Right. Which is actually how I ended up started writing programs and teaching, because I didn't want people to do the same dumb things I was doing.
Yeah, I agree. I look back, I said this on a show recently. I look back to my entire 30 years and I said, all right, there were 2 times where I got beat up. Oh, wait, was one of them. And then I said, wait a minute, like 2 years ago, I figured this out. Those 2 times are the only times I didn't have a mentor or a coach or someone to go to and go, hey, I just got hit by this. What do you do next? I thought back, and the reason I didn't, which is even more scary, is things were going like this. So then you get cocky and comfortable and go, I got it. I don't need it. No, wrong. Because success, again, is a crappy teacher.
It really is. I mean, even at my stage, and yours too, I'm sure. I mean, we're both, since my daughter, I was a single mom in 1989. So like pretty much right then I started investing. But I think sometimes investors, we like, we know it all. Yeah, we don't need to go to anything else. But you don't. You need to just always
sharpen.
Stay and sharpen and make sure you're up with everyone, and just always just stay, because you do. I think we get a little bit too comfortable sometimes. Yeah. And then when something does happen, we get caught with our pants down, and then we have to, especially as teachers, we have to really overcorrect so that we can like stop everybody else from crashing the same train that we just almost crashed in ourselves. Yeah, and that's interesting. When all the COVID started, I was like, I told Bill, my husband, I said, man, I am so happy that we have all of our things online and we have all these really great programs and we can still teach. And I'm not one of these people scrambling to throw together, I got a program, I threw it together in 4 days. It's like we had all those systems in place. And I always tell people, like, listen, if you're working with someone online that literally came on the scene since COVID started, you need to run the other direction. I agree. And one of my favorite things, I'm like, if they didn't go through 2008, they don't need to be teaching you.
Okay, so there's so many things we're in sync on. Right before COVID, I started saying to the podcast team, I don't want a guest on that that entered real estate after '08. And then I was on someone else's show and they called it new money and old money. That wasn't my term, it was theirs. And they said the new money is post '08. And I agree with you, don't go that direction because they haven't been through enough storms. They just haven't.
They haven't. You know what? I got to tell you something. My battery on my computer here says my battery is running low and everything is plugged in. So you're going to have to give me just 1 second here because, oh, God have mercy. You know, when you think you've done everything in the world, I did not plug it in to my extension cord because I plugged in my light. I forgot about my battery. You just never know what's going to happen on
You're back in business.
And you know what? We don't edit. So whenever I do anything like that, it's like, see right there, folks, before you get on
it's called real
important class, plug your computer in. I was like, why am I getting a low battery? Everything I have is plugged in, except my computer. But yeah, you're right. You know, the '08. Yeah, I'm glad that you think that way too, because there's just so many people that just out of nowhere, they're experts. And the thing that I feel for new investors is they don't know who to turn to that can actually help them, that wants to really help them and not just make a bunch of money selling programs.
I agree. I just said that we're doing some video work and I said, there's a ton of great marketers and I don't take that away from them, but they haven't done deals or they did deals 20 years ago and they can market. So you're buying their stuff and it's just doesn't make any sense. So here's a 3-step formula I always say. One, just pick a niche that you can get behind and get passionate about. If it's the one that you and I are in, great. But we're both not so naive to think this is the only niche. So pick a niche. Then 2, pick someone that's been at it long enough and is still at it. So in our case, to our points, pre-08. Like they have to go through storms. And that's life, economic, and other storms. They have to have gone through that. You and I both have done that. And third, after you get those 2 under your belt, put the blinders on for, in my opinion, 36 months. That's my opinion. 36 months. Just stay with, if you stay with anything that long with a coach and practice that ACA that I talked about, you can't mess up. It's not gonna be easy, but you can't mess up.
Yeah, I agree. I tell people the same thing. I'm like, just, you know, if you want to like dip your toe in all the different areas of real estate, you know, try wholesaling, try rehabbing, try different things, see what you like. And when you find the thing that's like, yeah, this resonates, this makes me feel good, then find like the good person that's been doing it pre-08. Really. I think if you survived '08, even if you like lost it all, but you got it all back, I still feel like you've got a lot of value because, you know, some of the most wealthiest people in the world went bankrupt multiple times. Almost everybody had, you know, and I tell you, '08, it was like, I barely survived '08. I mean, literally barely survived that myself. Same. I happened to just have a bunch of rentals at that time that were all rented Section 8. And that is what saved me, because if I would have had just regular people and the jobs and the market, I would probably be sitting like a lot of people were at the end of all that. So
I agree.
But it's crazy. So now, do you ever do anything commercial or storage, or do you rehab? Do you do any outside of this, what we're talking about? Do you have any other aspects of investing that you really enjoy?
Well, I mean, pre-08, I was a realtor, did 100 homes a year in the 90s. And then we did rehab projects. My wife did raise the roof projects, you know, ranch to add a story. We did condominium conversions. But now, having all that in hindsight, the terms business, like here's what I say a lot. We buy and sell on terms, right? Okay, if you can go structure a deal on a house, owner financing, we like doing them when they're debt-free because we structure principal-only payments. If you can structure that, you can structure that on a house, a car, a commercial building. It doesn't matter. It's terms. Again, it's been done since 1800s. So yes, we did our own building. I'm at my house today, but we did our own building on a 20-year owner financing. So I didn't have to go to the bank. I didn't have to go through commercial underwriting. I didn't have to pay all those points. The owner holds the note for 20 years. I didn't have to worry about it. It's so hassle-free. We did a 6-unit in my IRA, owner financing. Again, debt-free property, principal-only payments. So yes, you could do it on any property. I just teach single family. But if you're out there banging the doors, meaning talking to sellers, are you going to find other deals? Of course you are. You're just going to know how to do it and know how to pivot.
Yep. I like that. We recently got involved in doing a sort of a re-beautification program on a very small town. So
that's cool.
The biggest project I've ever taken on in my life, and we're working on an actual town.
Do you get to name it?
No, it's called Clinton, Iowa. That's where my husband is from. But at this point, the downtown's just 3 little block area. We actually have snapped up enough buildings to own almost half of it. So,
Wow.
no, I don't think they'd let me rename the whole thing.
You should ask them.
I could call it like Dwanderful.
Wonderful Square.
Dwanderful Square. Wouldn't that be fun? That would be fun. Hey, so I'm going to ask you about what you're drinking. I feel like, as I mentioned to you and as my audience knows, I always like to talk about the life equities. And the life equities are financial, family, physical, mental, and spiritual.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of real estate, and I don't know, you tell me what you think about this. I think a lot of people, especially when they're new, they're so focused on money. I gotta make money, I need money. And they're just so focused on when I make money, when I get here, when I get there, when. And I think people sometimes sort of lose sight of enjoying the moments.
I agree.
And taking care. So you were drinking a nice, healthy drink like that. So tell me like a little bit about why and how, because clearly you're in very good shape. So you take your health seriously.
Thank you. I do. Okay. It's been about 20 years on this one concoction, but to answer your question why, and I'll tell you what's in it. Because to do this at this level, what we're talking about for the last 30 years, what does it take? Energy, focus, among other things. But energy, so you've got to maintain your energy. In our program, we say, look, we could teach you guys all the skill sets. Like that's easy. It really is easy to teach that. Then why do people come out of the gate faster than others? Like they do a deal more quickly than others. Why? It's all the other stuff. It's the mental, the health, all the other pieces. So the health piece, this is nothing more than a tea. It's like a tea, but it's a food product, natural, organic. And then there's a immune system booster in it. And especially during COVID, but usually just during the winter I take it, but now it's every day during COVID. So energy, immune system, all the above.
So you do take the time for your family, your health, your mental peace of mind. You do as a living, breathing right there. You pretty much seem like you balance out all the things in your life.
We do, and we teach that again because and I won't take credit for this, but I had a guy on my show, Rock Thomas, and he called it the whole life millionaire. To your point, like it's all of it, and it's exactly what you with your life equity, same thing.
I like that, the whole life. I wish I would have thought of that.
I know he said it on our show, and my son-in-law, we were co-hosting it, and he said, "All right, go back. What the heck is the whole life millionaire?" And it was basically what you're saying. It's the well-rounded.
Me, I wish I would have thought of that first. I could have.
Me too. Yeah.
I know. Sometimes I hear these great ideas, and I'm like, why did I not think about that? That's
simple but effective. Yeah.
It is simple and it is effective. So if you had a brand new person, like really new on real estate investing, what are a couple pieces of advice that you would give them to make the transition from they really don't want this job, but they have to leave, they have to have their job, they have to pay their bills, but they really want to be an investor so desperately. How would you suggest or advise someone to make that transition? I think the transition, I feel like for the people that I see, like, oh, I got my degree, I did this, I did that, but I really want to do this instead. I find that the transition is difficult for people because most of the time they really need to keep their job and pay their bills. And then that real estate puts all these extra hours and stress and pressure, but they know if they can make that happen. But that in-between period seems to be really hard for people to navigate. So how would you suggest someone navigate the in-between?
Yeah, I think to your earlier point, and then I'll give you some ideas. I think a lot of it's muscle memory and fear because they don't have a plan for that gap. I really do. So the answer would be go back to the 3-step formula that I said, but then whoever the person is you're working with, say it's you sit down because you and I have been through this and you say, here's what I want to do. We've done this with like 8 students this year, gone full time. How do we do it? We said, where's your threshold for risk? Because some people say, I need a year in the bank. And others say, if I have 3 months in the bank, I'm good. So you got to find out your threshold for risk. There's no wrong answer. What do you need to see in the bank and coming in monthly in order for you to see the light? When you're working on the 3 payday system, like you and I use, it's easy to say, okay, I've got these 10 in the hopper. Now I know what's coming for the next 5 years. It's so simple. So the answer is putting a plan together with your mentor or advisor or coach or someone who's already done what you want to do. And then here's the key piece. It's hard, I think, for everyone. Let them hold you accountable. That's the key piece. You can make a plan and then you can go, okay, my time ran out, or this ran out, or that ran out. You got to have an accountability partner.
You know what? Accountability. I feel like that's one of the most important things in life for anything that we're trying to do. If someone doesn't even for me, if someone doesn't hold me accountable to things, I'm like, I can find myself sort of, slipping back, like,
Anyway.
I could just, it's 10. I just take the day off today. I had, but and I was like, nah, I'm accountable to people. I have things going on. I got to keep things going. So tell me a little bit about I like your 2 books. Tell me a little bit about your books.
The revised edition of Real Estate on Your Terms just came out like last month. In fact, I don't think it ships until the beginning of November, but it is on Amazon. So it's Real Estate on Your Terms. We added, it was post-COVID redone, not intentionally. We were already doing it. So it's very current with the 3 payday system and with Thriving in Chaos and some amazing extra chapters from students. So I wanted them to hear more from the trenches in real life versus just me ranting on the subjects. And then the second book came out in, I think it was 17 bestseller, was The New Rules of Real Estate. And my son-in-law, Zach, and my son, Nick, are both in it. And then 24 other experts in the real estate business. And I wish we had met before that. So the next one, you got to get in.
I was like, why am I not in that book? Hello?
Next book.
I better be in that next one. So your kids do it. So how's that working with I work with my kids too. How do you like working with your kids?
I love it. It sounds like our kids are very close in age too. So they, the different maturity level, they get it. My son-in-law, Zach, didn't grow up in real estate. My son and daughter obviously did. Yet they're both hugely successful in their own areas. They all like different areas, which is kind of cool. We didn't design it that way. It organically just went. So I'm not sure. Did that happen with you too, where they just took on the role?
They're all completely different. None of them like the same thing at all.
Yeah. So I love it. We keep it separate. Tonight we have everybody in the family is going to my daughter and son-in-law's house. It won't be business. There's a line, right?
Yeah, I did find, especially when our kids were young and they were learning the business, and they actually really learned a lot about rehabbing because we did a massive addition onto our house, and Bill and myself and our 3 kids, we built it, like 99% of it. So those kids were 11, 13, and 15, and they built a 5,000 square foot addition.
I love it.
They worked and they learned and now they're like, so I'm just like, hey, we need to, they know how much work everything is. So they sort of kind of grew up in it, but it was just funny how they all ended up in various aspects of it. But one thing they all have in common is they have rentals. They're all getting the rentals, getting them paid for, and they're all about that cash flow, and they've got a couple subject twos. And but my son is like a rehab maniac. He loves a rehab.
That's good.
Like my husband, Bill Twyford. I mean, Bill just wants to rehab day and night, work on things. I'm like, are you not exhausted? I'm exhausted looking at you.
Yeah, that's a different whole realm.
But you know what? He says it keeps him young. I rehab with him for 2 days. I can't move for a week. So it does not have the same effect on me. It does not have the same effect on me. So I'm going to ask you a couple more like super random questions.
Yeah.
About your first deal, or like maybe do you have like a favorite deal that you sort of look back and you're like, that was the deal, like not a favorite deal. Like, do you have a deal when you did this one deal and you thought like, this is a deal that made you feel like, I get it. I have arrived. I really consider myself a good, solid investor because this deal it challenged me in so many ways and showed me I'm there. Do you have a deal like that?
Yeah, I have two answers for that. One is I think the arriving or there was when I saw students doing it. But if I go back to my first deal, like the very first deal, it was pretty cool in a lot of aspects. And I felt at that stage that I had, because it was a house with extra land on a golf course that we subdivided. And not only do we subdivide, but in our area we had what was called a hammerhead lot, and there was different zoning. And then on top of that, learning lessons, had a partner that did a lot of land. Then we built a duplex on it, and then we condoed it and sold them separately. Like all this was one deal, and then we ended up with the house renting for a few years and then sold it. But that was like 4 or 5 deals within a deal, so that was like going to school. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, doesn't that get a feeling? You're just like, wow, look what I did. It's just like, dang, I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah, then you get to itch, and then you got to do it. And I remember we actually treed the lot. We logged the lot. I never even know you could do that, and got cash for the trees. You know, so just all these little lessons that came up as I'm thinking about just saying it to you. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah, so tell me about one of your first students where you looked at them and you were like, wow, I helped that person make that amount of money. Not that you did it, because certainly they put in their effort and stuff, but like, what did it feel like when one of your very first students was like, Chris, oh my God, look at this paycheck?
Yeah, it's interesting because we have a gentleman that's still in our program now. He's battling a health challenge right now. He's battling brain cancer right now, but he's still doing deals right now. And so I highlighted that in the community last week, but he was one of the first ones. And so it was really hands-on at that time. I was like, okay, I got to get him doing deals. And so I think he amassed about 750 grand worth of 3 paydays in his first like 24 months. We had no systems back then. We had this flip camera that would go in and out as you filmed, and it was crazy. And now people come on board, they do it a lot more quickly, but that was a cool experience to go through and to say, okay, we got it. Now we just got to fine tune the systems we track what we call TTFD, time to first deal. And so we get better and better and better at that. But that was a great first experience with him. He's out in Pennsylvania.
You've got all these, I like you have acronyms for everything. I need to start doing more of that. I'm listening, I'm like, oh, I feel like I want to be in your group so I know what all your terms mean.
We welcome you.
I want to know that. So I'm going to ask you a super random question. What's your favorite thing to eat?
My favorite thing to eat. Too many of them. Let me think. Just different chicken recipes my wife does. Ooh. There's too many of them.
My parents were from Tennessee. We always had that Southern fried chicken. So good.
That's the right answer if you're from there. What's your
favorite music?
We play as a theme song to our event every year. We're on our 6th year doing these events every year. It's just for the beginning and getting back from breaks, but it's Thunder by AC/DC. So that's just a high energy thing. And then usually classical rock, driving offbeat, but it depends on what environment we're in.
So didn't you find out, like the very first day I realized that my music from high school became classical? It's like, yeah. What does that mean? I was like, what do you mean that's old music? That's my high school music. Why is that now classical?
Yeah, they wanted to change it for the event. They said, you can't keep playing that old music. I said, no, that's our theme. We're going to stick with it.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong. A little OG right there. There's nothing wrong with being original and being classic. Well, I have, so where people want to get a hold of you, tell me what they do. Where do they go?
If they don't mind listening to me blab for another half hour and meet my son-in-law, there's a free webinar. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com.